2022's Department of Defense Warrior Games was held at Disney World and was hosted by comedy icon and media darling Jon Stewart. The Warrior Games have been held every year since 2010. They celebrate ill and wounded military service members from the United States and allied nations. Well, these wounded warriors compete in sporting events like swimming, cycling, and archery. But what was designed to showcase the bravery of those patriots who have suffered in the line of duty turned into a comedy of errors that Jon Stewart himself couldn't have written up.
The Department of Defense-sponsored Warrior Games features liberal comedian Jon Stewart awarding a member of Ukraine's neo-Nazi Azov battalion at Disney World.
One of the event's big winners was Ihor Hlushka, a member of Ukraine's notorious neo-Nazi military regiment, the Azov Battalion. Here's a picture of Hlushka in the hospital, sporting what appears to be a sunarod, black sun tattoo. It's a common symbol celebrated within the neo-Nazi world. Here's Jon Stewart giving Hlushka the Heart of the Team Award. You'll note that Hlushka is wearing a cast, which conveniently hides that sunarod tattoo.
The media conveniently hides the fact that there are Nazis, literal, legitimate Nazis in Ukraine.
Before Russia launched its military operation in 2022, it is a well-known fact that Ukraine's Azov battalion used neo-Nazi white nationalist ideology as its organizing principle. Media organizations around the world, including some funded by the U.S. government, had denounced the white supremacist organization and its growing influence within Ukraine and its military.
Понятно, что к этому готовились. Что эти нацисты, которые потом ушли в тербатальоны, различные там, да, подразделения, их просто-напросто, как псов дрессировали.
The ubiquity of neo-Nazi groups in Ukraine may sound random at first, but it makes sense once you learn the long history of Nazism in Ukraine.
You can go back and look in history. As soon as the Second World was over, as soon as the OSS turned into the CIA, they began Operation Red Sox, Operation Redbird, Operation Aerodynamic. You can look those up, dude. It's declassified now.
According to Cold War Allies, the origins of the CIA's relationship with Ukrainian nationalists, written by a CIA history staff member, the agency began its close collaboration with Ukrainian Nazis back in 1946, just a year after the end of World War II. Written in 1998, this paper was declassified in 2006. It is still redacted today, though. It details how the agency recruited Ukrainian nationalists and encouraged their expansion, despite the fact that many despised Poles and Jews, as well as Soviet communists, and even though they served in the German army and had been linked to Nazi atrocities. There were two key figures in all of this. One was Mykola Lebed, one of the founders of the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists, or the OUN. Lebed was trained by the Nazis during their occupation of Ukraine and is credibly alleged to have kidnapped and tortured Jewish people for sport, as well as ordered massacres and other acts of terror against Jews, Soviet prisoners, and entire villages of Polish people. Lebed was permitted to move to the United States in 1952. He became a citizen 5 years later and died a free man in Pittsburgh in 1998 at the age of 89.
And they were absolutely, politically promoting, paying, arming, training, directing these, the remnants of the OUN, of the Bandera, terrorist Nazi collaborationist forces.
The other major figure in this operation was Stepana Bandery, one of the most celebrated nationalist heroes in Ukraine today. The son of a Catholic priest, Bandery was born in 1909 in Galicia, which is today part of Poland and Western Ukraine. One historian has noted his propensity to cause self-harm in order to practice resistance to torture. He would stick pins underneath his fingernails. He would burn himself. He would whip himself. He would slam doors onto his fingers. Bandery's propensity for violence was put to good use once he was enlisted into the OUN at the age of 20. He organized the assassination of Soviet officials and the execution of OUN dissenters. When the Nazis invaded the Soviet Union, Bandery had risen as the OUN's undisputed leader. His organization joined the Nazi cause and fought alongside them during the invasion and occupation. Bandery was one of the authors of the OUN's mission statement, The Struggle and Activities of the OUN in Wartime, which advocated for the destruction of Muscovites, Poles, and Jews. Bandery's organization made good on its promises through orchestrating massacres of Jewish communities. The OUN's offshoot, the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, or UPA, also killed nearly 100,000 Poles during the last 2 years of World War II. Today, Bandery is glorified in Ukraine. Many consider him a national hero. Monuments are erected throughout the country, and streets carry his name. This embrace of neo-Nazism isn't just limited to the realm of ideas, however. It has spilled into the streets of disputed territories that are at the heart of this war, as neo-Nazi regiments have employed gruesome tactics that match the barbarism of their ideology.
Those are trained terrorists, bro. And normal human beings just can't do that. They have to be trained to do it.
Ukraine's decaying social fabric provided ample ground for neo-Nazi groups to recruit young men and young women.
Ukraine was a miserably poverty, third world clown show after the Soviet Union fell apart. And all these young dudes growing up, no identity, no prospects, no real education.
Over the past 2 years, U.S. media outlets have almost completely ignored concerns raised by activists and independent journalists concerning neo-Nazi ideology in Ukraine. But once denunciations began to gain momentum on social media, a whole slew of articles came out in the mainstream press arguing that Ukraine's neo-Nazi elements had been exaggerated and that they were now part and parcel of Russia's propaganda campaign. Anna Soroka strongly disagrees with these assessments and argues that, on the contrary, Nazi ideology has been growing stronger over the years.
Если вот в 2014, там буквально до 2020 года, все-таки идеология нацизма, она была все-таки, знаете, фрагментирована. Она больше воплощалась именно вот в этой, скажем так, системе этих батальонов. Она позволила им выйти за рамки вообще своих батальонов и уйти в общество.
The mainstreaming of neo-Nazi ideology in Ukraine, which raised major concerns in the West before Russia's military operation, has not magically gone away, as some Western pundits assert. Nor has it remained stagnant. Nazism in Ukraine has grown by leaps and bounds. No doubt that growing Russophobia and anti-Russian propaganda has played a major part in the propagation of Nazi elements in Ukraine, and the country has quickly become perhaps the most hate-filled nation in the world. And this is where our money is going, over $100 billion and counting. Next time, we'll investigate whether this is a war that can even be won, as we continue to leave Zelensky unmasked.